selling memberships or you're trying to change people's lives, and if you really are trying to change people's lives with the commitment of starting a regular exercise program, then you owe it not just to yourself, but to the person who's sitting across from you to learn the highest degree of communication skills, not sales skills, communication skills, so that you can put yourself in the best position to figure out, what do I need to do to motivate this person to take this important step?
Welcome along to the FBP Intensive Series brought to you by ABC Financial. I'm your host Chantal, and this is a 4-part series where one expert guest presents on one key topic each week for 4 weeks. During each show, you'll receive practical tips and actions to implement in your fitness business. Our focus topic for this series is sales, and our expert guest is Casey Conrad. Now, if you missed episodes 1 or 2 in the series, head over to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com and select the tab at the top of the screen called Intensives. There you'll find our first series on retention, plus episodes 1 and 2 of our sales intensive featuring Casey. Now let's go straight into this week's episode. Welcome everyone back to week 3 of our sales intensive, and especially warm welcome back to our expert guest, Casey Conrad. Hey, Casey.
Hello. Good to be back.
Have you had a good week?
I had a fantastic week. I made a lot of sales this week, and it was a lot of fun.
We love that. We love that. Well, thank you for joining us for week 3 of the intensive series. And we're here today to talk about handling objections, overcoming objections. And, you know, we know that not every single person is going to join on their first visit, or they're going to start personal training after their first trial session. In your experience, what should a salesperson actually say when someone presents an objection?
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't force us to just back up and say that the best way to overcome an objection is to pre-handle it. So I know that we didn't cover in this intensive, we were limited to 4 weeks, right? We didn't discuss the qualifying and touring stages, but know that the qualifying stage talks about exercise history, goals and motivation, and potential roadblocks. So you should, if you are a professional salesperson, you should be trying to uncover the objection during the qualifying stage so that you can handle it during the tour. Now, with that being said, that isn't always possible because some people don't tell you their objection. In fact, they give you the appearance that everything is hunky-dory, and then they present an objection. So, the first step, there are 6 steps to overcoming any objection. And, of course, a salesperson has to memorize these steps. Step 1 is to be quiet. Now, what do we mean by that? Well, when salespeople, particularly new salespeople, when they start to hear an objection and they've been trained to use a script to overcome it, sometimes they're way too fast to jump on that person because they're going to squash that objection, right? So just be quiet. Because what we find is that 2 things happen when you're quiet. Number 1, sometimes the customer literally talks themselves into buying. Because if you've done a great job and there's so many details, I mean, literally, Chantal, we could talk for 2 days on this subject, right? But when we get to the pre-close and we're leaving the tour and coming back to the sales desk, before I do the recap and the tie downs, I am going to ask 3 final questions. And one is, do we have everything you're looking for? The second is, can you see yourself being a member here? And the third is, aside from the membership price, do you have any other questions? So when I say, do we have everything you're looking for, And can you see yourself being a member here? And they say yes, and they say yes. And I've done my tour right, where I've gotten a lot of commitments from them. When somebody gives you an objection at this point, the point of sale, they actually should feel badly about it. Literally. They should have this uneasiness of feeling like they're not being congruent. Because they gave you yes, and I'm oversimplifying that, right? But they've given you all this positive vibe, and they've answered those final questions. And so if it's price objection, well, that's fine, because that's the one thing. But if it's the husband, or I got to think about it, or blah, 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 then they literally should feel badly. So when you look at them, and you're not getting that here in an audio, but I call it the dumb Columbo look. When somebody gives me an objection, I've trained myself to immediately have this inquisitive look, inquisitive, compassionate, not like, what the hell do you mean, right? But this inquisitive, compassionate look that draws them, makes 90% of people, I say, get on their bicycle and start trying to justify why they've now done a 180-degree turnaround and all of a sudden have said, oh, I'm not going to buy today. Because if you did your job right, they should literally be like, how much is it? I hope I can afford this. Okay? So that's step one, is be quiet. Okay? Step two is align with them. So whatever they said, you're basically going to use a single sentence and then fill it in with the appropriate additional words. And that single sentence is, hey, I can appreciate that. And then you fill it in. If they said it's the husband objection or the wife objection, I'd say, hey, you know what? I can appreciate that. I mean, if I were married, I probably would have spoken to my husband about this as well. Notice I'm using the past tense, but that's another seminar for another day. But see, all these nuances. I mean, really, it is an art. It is an absolute art. It is a craft, and that's why I love it. It's so much fun. But anyway, so back to the story here. So you're going to align with them. Then, of course, step three is you're going to question it nicely. And how you do that is you drop in your tonality and you use the phrase, do you mind my asking? How long have you been married? Oh, wow, 12 years. What do you think he's going to say? I mean, you've been married 12 years. What do you think he's going to say? Okay. And just curious, if you weren't married, would you do it today? Oh, you would? Okay. So, and I of course, see, I have no problem role-playing with myself. I can amuse myself in role plays, for hours on end. But what I did there was questioning it nicely might involve 2 or 3 questions, okay? I also moved into if-then step 4, which basically is going to be where you narrow it down, you isolate it. You isolate it so that you know it's the only thing. So notice I did that by leading her down, questioning it, what do you think he'll say? And then saying, oh, if you weren't married, would you do it today? So if it's the price objection, I might say in step 4, isolate it. So if it wasn't for that initial investment, you'd go ahead and get started today. Basically what you're doing is you're taking every other objection off the table. Now, maybe you don't. Maybe they give you the husband objection, and then all of a sudden you say, well, if you weren't married, would you do it today? And they go, no, actually, I'm going to go down and see the XYZ club. So this person is throwing hubby under the bus. Hubby has nothing to do with this, but if you're not able to ask those questions like that, you're going to have a problem, because this person's going to walk away and you never would have isolated it and wouldn't know that they're actually going to go down and look at the other club. You're following up on the husband objection, and that was just a bunch of bullshit, okay? So that's step 4. Step 5 is another if I, or if then. I shouldn't say if I, because it's not always if I. But basically it's find a solution. So if there was a way that you could get started today and still go home and talk to your husband, but take advantage of our savings, would you be willing to do that today? Would you be willing to explore that, whatever that language is? If there was a way that we could break up that initial investment into a couple of pays over the next few weeks, would that give you the flexibility to get started? So what you're doing here, and this is an important one, okay, because a lot of salespeople will go, no problem, I can split it into two. And then the person says, well, that doesn't work either. So you just completely and totally stuck your butt out, and now you got rejected again. And this leads to, number one, now the customer's totally in control. But number two, now you're a little gun shy. So I want my salespeople to really feel empowered. And when they know how to ask the right questions, they're always empowered. So it's find a solution. That's step 5. And then step 6, reclose. Great. Let me get the paperwork. So those are your 6 steps. Step 1, be quiet. Step 2, and of course, remember, you got the facial expression going on there. You want to be inquisitive. You want to be interested, not aggressive. Step 2 is align with them. Hey, I can appreciate that. This is an investment in yourself. I can appreciate that. I would have talked to my husband as well, right? Whatever the objection is, you're going to use that verbiage. Then, of course, you're going to question it nicely. I'm curious, is it just that? If it wasn't for that, blah, blah. And then, is that the only thing? You're isolating it. Could be any number of language patterns there. Step 5, find a solution. If we could do this, then would you get started today? And then step 6, reclose. So every single thing, I know I said this 2 weeks ago, something like that, when we were going over the 8 steps. I said every single thing has a strategy, it has a skill, and it has a tool. Well, here we are. We're talking about objections. There's a strategy behind it. There's a skill behind it. And the tool, of course, that we're using is the script. Here's the bottom line. And I don't want to get all corny and all gushy or anything like that. But here's the bottom line. Are you just selling memberships? Or are you trying to change people's lives? And if you really are trying to change people's lives with the commitment of starting a regular exercise program, then you owe it not just to yourself, but to the person who's sitting across from you to learn the highest degree of communication skills, not sales skills, communication skills, so that you can put yourself in the best position to figure out, what do I need to do to motivate this person to take this important step? And not everybody's brand new to exercise, but a hell of a lot of people walking through the club doors are pretty new to exercise. So, and even if they're an existing exerciser, what is it that they're not getting from the facility that they're at now? And how can you best communicate with them? And I'm going to say this, if your club isn't right for them, have a network of other clubs in your area that you can refer them to. Don't just care about the sale. Care about the person.
Casey, are there any resources that you would recommend that people can check out so that they can understand that human behavior better?
Oh my gosh, there are so many. But look, I personally believe, I think getting a basic foundation of communication styles, not disc, not per se. That's great to know too. But understanding the communication styles. Of course, I'm going to be totally, shameless in saying the first 3 chapters of my book talk about NLP, the communication styles, what motivates people to buy, understanding their lever, their point of pain, and of course, matching and mirroring and pacing and leading. But just Google NLP. Go take a course, buy a book. I talk about it specific to fitness, but there are tons of resources out there that will give you some fundamentals for understanding communication styles and what are called meta sorts. These are things like your buying patterns. What time frame do you make a decision in? What frame of reference? All these different, really what I think are very cool psychological insights.
Well, you know what? We're going to make it super easy for everyone because we're actually listing all of your books in the show notes every week for 4 weeks. So that's going to make it really easy for everyone to go and reference those first 3 chapters that you were talking about. So, Casey, you know that we like to finish off each of our weekly shows with a little bit of homework for the listeners. So what's their homework this week? Before we hear about this week's homework from Casey, here's a message from our podcast partner, ABC Financial.
Hi, this is Mike Kelly from ABC Financial. If you have a club located in the Southeast region, Virginia down to Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, I would love to help you with your software and payment processing. You can contact me at mike.kelly, Kelly, at abcfinancial.com. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike. Now let's get back to Casey to hear about our homework this week.
You know what the homework is. Hey, take that transcript that I found out last week you guys are doing and highlight the 6 steps to overcoming objections. Memorize them and role play with yourself, Can you jump into, different scripts for different objections? Are you comfortable? Can you even list the 6 steps right now? You have to memorize these things. You couldn't learn how to read until you had your alphabet. And you didn't know your alphabet visually until your mother sang it to you. It's the same process. It's just a new set of skills.
Thank you very much. That is your homework for this week, everybody. So once again, thank you so much to Casey for joining us for week 3 of our Sales Intensive. Now, next week, our final week of the series. As you said, Casey, I think we could talk for hours and hours and hours. We've really summarized this down for everyone. But next week, we're talking about making follow-up calls and how we change our mindset on actually making those calls. Because I know it can be a little bit irky for some people. They don't really like doing those. So we're going to dive into that and talk about some examples of what to say. Casey, thank you for joining us for week 3 of our intensive series.
Hey, always a pleasure.
The intensive series wouldn't be possible without the support of our podcast partner, ABC Financial. ABC Financial leads the health and fitness industry in software and payment processing solutions. If you want your business to thrive with the most advanced club management software, comprehensive payment processing, and customer service that is second to none, then choose ABC Financial. You can request a demo at www.abcfinancial.com. Also, a reminder that thanks to our foundation partner, Active Management, you can now download a transcription of each show in the intensive series. Just go to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com, click on the tab at the top of the page called Intensive Series, then scroll down and press the button that says Access the transcription of this interview. It is that easy. A reminder of this week's action from Casey is to download that transcript we just talked about and highlight the 6 steps to overcoming objections. And then, of course, memorize them. Thanks for joining us for episode 2 of the FBP Intensive Series on Sales. I'm your host, Chantal, and I'll see you next week.